Did you know that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of Yah? My goal is to bless you with the Word. Listen to it while you're driving. Listen to it while you're walking along the way. Listen to it when you lay down at night. Listen to the Word.
Deuteronomy chapter 3 verse 23 through chapter 7 verse 11. Then I pleaded with Yahweh, Yahweh Elohim, you have begun to reveal your greatness to your servant and your strong hand. For what other power is there in heaven or on earth that can do the works and mighty deeds that you do? Please let me go across and see the good land on the other side of the Jordan, that wonderful hill country and the Lebanon. But Yahweh was angry with me on account of you, and he didn't listen to me. Yahweh said to me, enough from you. Don't say another word to me about this matter. Climb up to the top of Pisgah and look out to the west, north, south, and east. Look with your eyes, but you will not go across this Jordan. However, commission Yehoshua, encourage him and strengthen him, for he will lead this people across and enable them to inherit the land that you will see. So we stayed in the valley across from Beit Peor. Now Israel, listen to the laws and rulings I am teaching you, in order to follow them so that you will live. Then you will go in and take possession of the land that Yahweh, the power of your fathers, is giving you. In order to obey the mitzvah of Yahweh your power, which I am giving you, do not add to what I am saying, and do not subtract from it. You saw with your own eyes what Yahweh did at Baal Peor, that Yahweh destroyed from among you all the men who followed Baal Peor. But you who stuck with Yahweh your power are still alive today, every one of you. Look, I have taught you laws and rulings, just as Yahweh my power ordered me, so that you can behave accordingly in the land where you are going in order to take possession of it. Therefore, observe them and follow them, for then all peoples will see you as having wisdom and understanding. When they hear of all these laws, they will say, this great nation is surely a wise and understanding people. But what great nation is there that has the most high power as close to them as Yahweh our power is whenever we call on him? What great nation is there that has laws and rulings as just as this entire Torah, which I am setting before you today? Only be careful and watch yourselves diligently as long as you live, so that you won't forget what you saw with your own eyes, so that these things won't vanish from your hearts. Rather, make them known to your children and grandchildren, the day you stood before Yahweh your power at Horeb, when Yahweh said to me, gather the people to me, and I will make them hear my very words, so that they will learn to hold me in awe as long as they live on earth, and so that they will teach their children. You approached and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain blazed with fire to the heart of heaven, with darkness, clouds, and thick mist. Then Yahweh spoke to you out of the fire. You heard the sound of words, but saw no shape. There was only a voice. He proclaimed his covenant to you, which he ordered you to obey, the 10 words, and he wrote them on 2 stone tablets. At that time, Yahweh ordered me to teach you laws and rulings, so that you would live by them in the land you are entering in order to take possession of it. Therefore, watch out for yourselves, since you did not see a shape of any kind on the day Yahweh spoke to you in Horeb from the fire. Do not become corrupt and make yourselves a carved image having the shape of any figure, not a representation of a human being, male or female, or a representation of any animal on earth, or a representation of any bird that flies in the air, or a representation of anything that creeps along on the ground, or a representation of any fish in the water below the shoreline. For the same reason, do not look up at the sky, at the sun, moon, stars, and everything in the sky, and be drawn away to worship and serve them. Yahweh your power has allotted these to all the peoples under the entire sky. No, you, Yahweh, has taken and brought out of the smelting furnace, out of Egypt, to be a people of inheritance for him, as you are today. But Yahweh was angry with me on account of you, and swore that I would not cross the Jordan and go into that good land which Yahweh your power is giving you to inherit. Rather, I must die in this land and not cross the Jordan, but you are to cross and take possession of that good land. Watch out for yourselves, so that you won't forget the covenant of Yahweh your power, which he made with you, and make yourself a carved image, a representation of anything forbidden to you by Yahweh your power. For Yahweh your power is a consuming fire, a jealous power. When you have had children and grandchildren, lived a long time in the land, become corrupt and made a carved image, a representation of something, and thus done what is evil in the sight of Yahweh your power, and provoked him, I call on the sky and the earth to witness against you today that you will quickly disappear from the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess. You will not prolong your days there, but will be completely destroyed. Yahweh will scatter you among the peoples and among the nations to which Yahweh will lead you away. You will be left few in number. There you will serve powers which are the product of human hands, made of wood and stone, which can't see, hear, eat, or smell. However, from there you will seek Yahweh your power, and you will find him if you search after him with all your heart and being. In your distress, when all these things have come upon you, in the Acharit Hayamin, you will return to Yahweh your power and listen to what he says. For Yahweh your power is a merciful power. He will not fail you, destroy you, or forget the covenant with your ancestors which he swore to them. Indeed, inquire about the past before you were born, since the day the Most High created human beings on the earth, from one end of heaven to the other. Has there ever been anything as wonderful as this? Has anyone heard anything like it? Did any other people ever hear the voice of the Most High speaking out of a fire, as you have heard, and stay alive? Or has the Most High power ever tried to go and take for himself a nation from the very bowels of another nation, by means of ordeals, signs, wonders, war, a mighty hand, an outstretched arm, and great terrors, like all that Yahweh your power did for you in Egypt before your very eyes? This was shown to you so that you would know that Yahweh is power, and there is no other besides him. From heaven he caused you to hear his voice, in order to instruct you, and on earth he caused you to see his great fire, and you heard his very words coming out from the fire. Because he loved your ancestors, chose their descendants after them, and brought you out of Egypt with his presence and great power, in order to drive out ahead of you nations greater and stronger than you, so that he could bring you in and give you their land as an inheritance, as is the case today. Know today and establish it in your heart that Yahweh is the Most High power in heaven above and on earth below. There is no other. Therefore you are to keep his laws and mitzvot, which I am giving you today, so that it will go well with you and with your children after you, and so that you will prolong your days in the land Yahweh your power is giving you forever. Then Moshe separated 3 cities on the east side of the Jordan toward the sunrise, to which a killer might flee. That is, someone who kills by mistake a person whom he did not previously hate, and upon fleeing to one of these cities might live there. The cities were Betzer in the desert, in the flat land for the Reuvenite, Ramat in Gilead for the Gadai, and Golan in Bashan for the Manasseh. This is the Torah which Moshe placed before the people of Israel. These are the instructions, laws, and rulings which Moshe presented to the people of Israel after they had come out of Egypt, beyond the Jordan River, in the valley across from Beit Peor, in the land of Sihon, king of the Amorite, who lived at Heshbon, whom Moshe and the people of Israel defeated when they came out of Egypt. And they took possession of his land and the land of Og, king of Bashan, the 2 kings of the Amorite, who were beyond the Jordan towards the sunrise. from Aor on the edge of the Arnon Valley to Mount Sion, that is, Mount Hermon, with all the Arava beyond the Jordan eastward, all the way to the Dead Sea at the foot of the slopes of Pisgah. Then Moshe called to all Israel and said to them, "Listen, Israel, to the laws and rulings which I am announcing in your hearing today, so that you will learn them and take care to obey them. Yahweh our power made a covenant with us at Horeb. Yahweh did not make this covenant with our fathers, but with us who are all of us here alive today. Yahweh spoke with you face to face from the fire on the mountain. At that time I stood between Yahweh and you in order to tell you what Yahweh was saying, because on account of the fire you were afraid and wouldn't go up onto the mountain. He said, I am Yahweh your power, who brought you out of the land of Egypt where you lived as slaves. You are to have no other powers before me. You are not to make for yourselves a carved image or any kind of representation of anything in heaven above, on the earth beneath, or in the water below the shoreline. You are not to bow down to them or serve them. For I, Yahweh your power, am a jealous power, punishing the children for the sins of the parents, also the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but displaying grace to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and obey my mitzvah. You are not to misuse the name of Yahweh your power, because Yahweh will not leave unpunished someone who misuses his name. Observe the day of Shabbat to set it apart as holy, as Yahweh your power ordered you to do. You have 6 days to labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat for Yahweh your power. On it, you are not to do any kind of work, not you, your son or your daughter, not your male or female slave, not your ox, your donkey, or any of your other livestock, and not the foreigner staying with you inside the gates to your property, so that your male and female servants can rest just as you do. You are to remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh your power brought you out from there with a strong hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahweh your power has ordered you to keep the day of Shabbat. Honor your father and mother, as Yahweh your power ordered you to do, so that you will live long and have things go well with you in the land Yahweh your power is giving you. Do not murder. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. Do not give false evidence against your neighbor. Do not covet your neighbor's wife. Do not covet your neighbor's house, his field, his male or female slave, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. These words Yahweh spoke to your entire gathering at the mountain from fire, cloud, and thick mist in a loud voice. Then it ceased. But he wrote them on 2 stone tablets, which he gave to me. When you heard the voice coming out of the darkness as the mountain blazed with fire, you came to me, all the heads of your tribes and your leaders, and said, Here, Yahweh our power has shown us his glory and his greatness. We have heard his voice coming from the fire, and we have seen today that the Most High Power does speak with human beings, and they stay alive. But why should we keep risking death? This great fire will consume us. If we hear the voice of Yahweh our power anymore, we will die. For who is there of all humanity that has heard the voice of the living power speaking from the fire as we have and stayed alive? You, go near and hear everything Yahweh our power says. Then you will tell us everything Yahweh our power says to you, and we will listen to it and do it. Yahweh heard what you were saying when you spoke to me, and Yahweh said to me, I have heard what this people has said when speaking to you, and everything they have said is good. Oh, how I wish their hearts would stay like this always, that they would fear me and obey all my mitzvot, so that it would go well with them and their children forever. Go, tell them to return to their tents. But you, stand here by me, and I will tell you all the mitzvot laws and rulings which you are to teach them, so that they can obey them in the land I am giving them as their possession. Therefore, you ought to be careful to do as Yahweh your power has ordered you. You are not to deviate either to the right or the left. You are to follow the entire way which Yahweh your power has ordered you, so that you will live. Things will go well with you, and you will live long in the land you are about to possess. Now, this is the mitzvah, the laws and rulings which Yahweh your power ordered me to teach you for you to obey in the land you are crossing over to possess, so that you will fear Yahweh your power and observe all his regulations and mitzvah that I am giving you, your child, and your grandchild, as long as you live, and so that you will have long life. Therefore listen, Israel, and take care to obey, so that things will go well with you, and so that you will increase greatly as Yahweh, the power of your ancestors, promised you by giving you a land flowing with milk and honey. Shema Yasharallah, Yahweh Allah Yahweh Yahweh Akkad. Hear Israel, Yahweh our power, Yahweh is one. And you are to love Yahweh your power with all your heart, all your being, and all your resources. These words which I am ordering you today are to be on your heart, and you are to teach them carefully to your children. You are to talk about them when you sit at home, when you are traveling on the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them on your hand as a sign. Put them at the front of a headband around your forehead, and write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. When Yahweh your power has brought you into the land he swore to your ancestors Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that he would give you, cities great and prosperous which you didn't build, houses full of all sorts of good things which you didn't fill, water cisterns dug out which you didn't dig, vineyards and olive trees which you didn't plant, and you have eaten your fill, then be careful not to forget Yahweh who brought you out of the land of Egypt where you lived as slaves. You are to fear Yahweh your power, serve him, and swear by his name. You are not to follow other powers, chosen from the powers of the peoples around you, because Yahweh your power, who is here with you, is a jealous power. If you do, the anger of Yahweh your power will flare up against you, and he will destroy you from the face of the earth. Do not put Yahweh your power to the test, as you tested him at Massah. Observe diligently the mitzvah of Yahweh your power, and his instructions and laws which he has given you. You are to do what is right and good in the sight of Yahweh, so that things will go well with you, and you will enter and possess the good land Yahweh swore to your ancestors, expelling all your enemies ahead of you, as Yahweh said. Someday your child will ask you, what is the meaning of the instructions, laws, and rulings which Yahweh our power has laid down for you? Then you will tell your child, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and Yahweh brought us out of Egypt with a strong hand. Yahweh worked great and terrible signs and wonders against Egypt, Pharaoh, and all his household before our very eyes. He brought us out from there in order to bring us to the land he had sworn to our ancestors that he would give us. Yahweh ordered us to observe all these laws, to fear Yahweh our power, always for our own good, so that he might keep us alive as we are today. It will be righteousness for us if we are careful to obey all these mitzvot before Yahweh our power, just as he ordered us to do. Yahweh your power is going to bring you into the land you will enter in order to take possession of it, and he will expel many nations ahead of you, the Hittite, Girgashite, Emori, Canaanite, Perizzai, Hivi, and Yebusai, 7 nations bigger and stronger than you. When he does this, when Yahweh your power hands them over ahead of you, and you defeat them, you ought to destroy them completely. Do not make any covenant with them. Show them no mercy. Don't intermarry with them. Don't give your daughter to his son, and don't take his daughter for your son. For he will turn your children away from following me in order to serve other powers. If this happens, the anger of Yahweh will flare up against you, and he will quickly destroy you. No, treat them this way. Break down their altars, smash their standing stones to pieces, cut down their sacred poles, and burn up their carved images completely. For you are a people set apart as holy for Yahweh your power. Yahweh your power has chosen you out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his own unique treasure. Yahweh didn't set his heart on you or choose you because you numbered more than any other people. On the contrary, you were the fewest of all peoples. Rather, it was because Yahweh loved you and because he wanted to keep the oath which he had sworn to your ancestors, that Yahweh brought you out with a strong hand and redeemed you from a life of slavery under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. From this, you can know that Yahweh your power is indeed the Most High power, the faithful power who keeps his covenant and extends grace to those who love him and observe his mitzvot to 1,000 generations. But he repays those who hate him to their face and destroys them. He will not be slow to deal with someone who hates him. He will repay him to his face. Therefore, you are to keep the mitzvot, laws, and rulings which I am giving you today, and obey them.
La 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 la.